Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Club Grubbery. John, we've been waiting for this interview, this second interview with Dr. Astrid Stuckelberger, for a couple of weeks now. The first interview we did with her really opened a lot of eyes. And welcome back, Astrid. It's great to have you back on.
Thank you, Graham and John. I'm very happy to be there for Australians. And my dad was Australian passport at the end of his 20 last years, so I feel a bit Australian too.
Well, you'd be more than welcome. We're recording this Friday, the 4th of July. It'll be going out straight after recording. John, you are the chairman of the Aligned Council of Australia, whose primary focus is to prevent Australia from buying into the WHO international health regulation. How important is the information we're going to be watching tonight to our future outcomes in this country?
Well, this should be shown around the world, Hoodie. There's no doubt about it. The information that Astrid is going to share and hopefully explain in terms that people will understand is essentially an assault on our way of living forever more. I mean, that's where we're at. I mean, we are under attack from these grubs at the WHO and the WEF and all these other nonsense organisations that are just bought into our lives and have essentially taken control from our government. That's exactly what's happening here. We are going to be subservient to a master in Geneva, and that's where it's at. And I think Astrid will explain very, very clearly just why we are. This is a clear and present danger. We interviewed Senator Ron Johnson. He said it was a clear and present danger to the ANZUS alliance. I think it is. America's getting out of the WHO. New Zealand have advised that they're not signing up to this mess. So why are we doing it?
Exactly right. And I've got to be honest, John. Am I confident that the Australian government, with Mark Butler, the health minister, is going to back away from this ratification? I'm not. I'm not, because what we're dealing with in Australia is a communist government. It has been. The Labor Party is a communist party. There's no doubt about that. All the truths have been revealed, especially as we interviewed Trevor Loudon, who wrote Comrade Prime Minister, the book about Anthony Albanese. These people are lockstep with the New World Order. They want Australia to be part of this global governance, and they're going to do it at our expense. And I said in the promo for this program, Astrid and John, yesterday, that any country that cedes its sovereignty to a foreign power, those politicians who have and allowed that to happen have committed treason. And that's a very, very grave offence when we're talking about the sovereignty of a country. So, Astrid Stuckelberger, thank you so much for coming back on. Just for those who may have missed your first interview with us, give us a very brief summary of your experience. Your whole life was about working for the WHO. All you ever wanted to do, all your life
Yes,
was to work for the
exactly.
WHO.
Yeah, I'm born in an international family, half Norwegian, half Swiss German, and my English was the first language of my parents. So we kept on, and that's to show that my focus in life was always with international people, and that's how I feel a citizen of the world. So very quickly, I took a UN summer course to understand the United Nations, and then I applied to the UN university, and I got an answer that this does not have students. To my big disappointment, that was very early on. I was 23 years old, and then I went into biology, psychology major, then Master of Science, and I did my Master of Science with a professor who was on intercultural health psychology and mental health, and I was detached to the Department of Mental Health of WHO for the Master of Science on intercultural diagnosis of mental health, showing that 8 countries and 8 ways of diagnosing, not one PCR like they tried to make us understand, that the technology and AI can make a diagnosis in cultures that are so different, and ways of living and culture of community health. I thought, okay, I'm going to get a contract maybe here, and I want to stay in WHO. But I understood that the GPO, junior professional officers, are nominated by member states, and so you have a whole couloir of, if those who want to go, they do internship. You can do it in any of the UN institutions. But I realized that not. But I was lucky that in the Department of Mental Health they had a collaborative study on grieving in older persons. And the head of this, Dr. Obagemian, he wanted to recruit me. He recruited me for the University of Geneva Faculty of Medicine and Geriatric Medicine. So that was my first experience, and I really loved it. I thought, that's great. And ever since then, I'll make it short, the 10 first years I had a research mandates as a head coordinator and director of the Interdisciplinary Center of Aging, and at the national level, also co-director of the program on aging. And for that, I also collaborated with WHO, and it became almost my only focus because it became so big that we organized the UN Open Day, the UN International Year, and lots of documents with WHO and the Swiss, who were very happy that I was doing international affairs. And we got a prize of Kofi Annan. And so I was totally embedded with the network we created in all the agencies who were supposed to tackle aging and were not tackling aging. So I realized, that there is an International Association of Social Security based in the International Labor Office, very obscure. I thought, what the heck is this? They are managing the social security of the whole world. And I had questions like that all the time. Even if I met the director, I got along with him. He was funny. He was American. But now I get the answer. It's social security was centralized. Yeah, it was centralized. It is centralized. Our social security numbers are centralized in pockets like that. So the UN, I realized, International Labor Office, international this, international that, we're grabbing all the ministerial affairs of the world with member states. That was their monopoly game, that in Australia, the Minister of Health reports to WHO, the Minister of Labor reports to the International Labor Office, the President, Prime Minister reports to the General Assembly, etc., etc. It goes up to telecommunication, to agriculture, to farming, to they have made so many agencies that I will show you that in the slide. But so that was the 10 years until 2000. I got a prize from Kofi Annan. It made a lot of jealous people. Contract cut, and then the politician hired me for organizing UN world summits for religious and spiritual leaders. There I was not paid, but it was my own wanting to do that. It was written in the stars, like you say. But for example, the WISES, the World Society Information, that's happening now, today in Geneva, this week. You can go and look it up. It's the digital for all, AI for all. But 20 years ago, it was not about that. It was for information on telecommunication. They did not talk of AI. So you see how it jumped to this UN grab. I will explain to you later. Okay, so the next 10 years, I've always been with the Faculty of Medicine, University of Geneva, Lausanne, and many other universities. But I got missions more and more with WHO, paid, different departments, ethics of research, and what happened with our experimental injection would never have been validated. That I can tell you, conflict of interest. Then I was 3 years and 4 years, and that's what's going to serve me, for the International Health Regulation Implementation Training that we had to set up, the IHR, we call it, 2005, that they want to change today and totally to a dictatorship. It was working well, and I put up the training, most of the courses on emergency management, communication, health systems, ethics, human rights, and always calling for experts, from WHO, with Georgetown University and Pretoria University. So I have all those documents, and that was a really big chunk of my life, in parallel to more research that I was doing on preventive medicine with the Institute of Social and Preventive Medicine of the Faculty of Medicine, and it became the Institute of Global Health. So I was in charge of the summer school, on IHR, on international health regulation, on showing how the UN works. And I had this on many different courses in Geneva, with the American schools, in universities, etc. But in 2016, there was a change. And they put at the head of the Institute of Global Health, which I was going to head, suddenly a private sector guy, medical mathematical doctor, specialized in R0, the risk zero. And he actually had worked for Sanofi and has worked for the globalists. So now I understand what the shift was. And I kept on my research with the European Union, with the international public health. So I'm if you take my diploma, it's a key point always, but my career has always been coming in and out with WHO, with consultancies. Last one, I will show you a slide about it. It also is very, I can see, but otherwise I have a Master of Science, a PhD, and a Privatdozent, which is a professor title in German, Swiss, Germany. Yeah.
Astrid, a question we've had from one of our people is that an African leader back in 2020, I think it was, came out and said that they didn't believe that virus existed. They thought it was a scam, and they were very outspoken. And accusations were made that Tedros, the Director General of the WHO, had not even identified the virus, that it hadn't been done. He was just relying on external sources of information. Can you confirm that?
I confirm. I even go further. I confirm that they did not apply at all the risk assessment that we were teaching, because in the risk assessment of WHO and IHR that we were, when there is an emergency that starts with the outbreak, it starts with one case. The zero case has to be found, the case zero, they call it. If not, they have to find a cluster, like a farm where a chicken dies and then a child dies. And, we never had that story. We don't know where is the case zero. The other thing is that once you have those cases and clusters, you do a risk assessment of the risk, but you don't go only on the viral hypothesis. This is a minor hypothesis that has been constructed, now I realize, since 20 years with SARS-CoV-1, which, by the way, only covered 8 months and 24 countries and was epi curve, very simple. It made 700 deaths. To be proven that it was that because it's a flu, that's another question. But so to assessment, to really prove it's a virus, you have to do what is called the Koch protocol. The Institute of Koch in Germany, one of the biggest center and most reliable normally in Germany, has a system to evaluate and prove that it is what they call a virus or a bacteria or a parasite. And this has never been talked about. They did not do this assessment. So there are 4 points. You have to isolate, purify the so-called virus, bacteria, parasite, take a picture, not a Photoshop picture like we see all the time. It's crazy with spikes, Then, so one, two, isolation, purification. You have to prove the causality. To prove the causality, you take the this agent, this pathogen, and you inoculate it into animals, and you see what happens. Do they die? Because that is the cursor. This is the criteria number 1. Do people die? If they're sick, do they have exactly the same symptom? They can't walk, they can't breathe, all the same. If you can establish that causality in animals, you can do it ethically in humans as long as they don't die, but you can do at the cellular level. Then you can take 1, 2, 3 cases, and then you can say, yeah, even humans, and we have taken from corpse, dead bodies, we have made an autopsy, and we can see this and we can see that. Autopsies were forbidden. So this is third, contagiousness. And the fourth is, the third is causality, and the fourth is contagiousness. And contagiousness, and that's what they used to create fear. They said it was very contagious. You remember this fear mongering, which is unethical and is against the international health regulation communication policy. So this contagiousness has to be proven, and to be proven, you have to make a demonstration the same way. And this was never proven. So I know it's not only this person saying it, I forgot her name, But it is also 200 universities in the US, a very high university who took samples post-mortem or post-contagiousness, post-diagnosis, and proved that they could not find anything that resembled to a viral agent. So you see, the scam is not only on that, it is something else. So if it is something else, you cannot treat well and you cannot diagnose well. They diagnose this with the only device used was the PCR to prove the statistics. Oh, look how many COVID. It proved out that the PCR, and I made many reports, for tribunals on that, and also for Reiner für mich on the grand jury on the scam of PCR, which he demonstrated also really well. This 95%, 97 or 98 even, of false positive, because not only they did amplification cycle beyond 45, 40, but it is that Kari Mullis, its inventor, said it is a tool and device for the lab. Nobody can manage an epidemic or anything in the population where usually you don't have diagnostics like a device who is superseding a doctor's decision. You see, you need to look at the symptomatology. So PCR is done for lab when you know what you're looking for.
Mm.
And I always quote three documents, three things. It's Kari Mullis, Nobel Prize, who already with Fauci and H1N1 said, you can't use the PCR. Why are you using that if you know what you're looking for? And he was challenging even HIV. So to tell you how far it's going. The second document was the CDC document of July. Even in January 2020, they had the validity of PCR and the limits. And it was said, also, you cannot use the PCR. It is written there for anything in the population or managing an epidemic. And the third is WHO itself, who in their notification of PCR said you need the doctor to validate with his symptomatology, and you cannot standardize this. So you see, just to know that diagnostics has been abused completely to create fear that people who are healthy are sick is made the lockdown, the mask, everybody was afraid. Still today, people wear masks, you know that. They have gotten the trigger of fear in their brain programmed, and they have used that in 2020, the whole way to 21, 22, 20, to now, to implement what they want. So no virus, it's something else. There was no more death in 2020 than any other year. Ioannidis, professor at Stanford University, one of the top 10 epidemiologists in the world, published at least 3 papers. And the third one was in WHO itself, WHO Bulletin, saying that there is no more death in 2020 than any other year. There are clusters, that might have a higher suddenly for maybe other reasons. But I was calling those people and still today calling the virus, I call them the viromaniacs because they're obsessed. They are paid to put the pasture, the French pasture business in place. There is a virus, you can't see it, you can't prove it, it creates fear, and you get the solution is a vaccine only, even if you're healthy, and you cannot take the medication that heals, and you cannot make autopsy. But we are now 5 years after, and a lot has been now discovered.
Well, you've got a pretty long presentation to give us tonight. We've given you a share screen. This will be a long interview, folks. And for those of you who are getting sick of the ads on the broadcast, we're not setting that up. That's happening because that's how social media works. And there is a tutorial on our Facebook page on how you can turn the ads off. So we ask you to look at that at the top of the page. So Astrid, please take us on this journey to.
And please interrupt me.
No problem at all. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, please interrupt me if you have questions, or it reminds you questions from people watching.
Yeah, for sure.
So I will. Okay, can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, very good. So I have done and evolved with presentations since 4 years. I like the presentation because first it's more professional. There are many people who are mimicking, what I say or other people say. It's fine, but with slides, at least you can reuse it, and there is no mimicking and wrong interpretations. So I call it a systematic global UN WHO system of corruption, ethically, legally. But it's also, sometimes I call it the GRAB, the UN and WHO GRAB. And I put a public health and human rights perspective. Many people don't know what it is, public health. It's what I've done my whole life. You take science, you review it, you mention people, you validate the system of methodology of many sciences, not just one. It's not just infectious disease. The public health is looking at all aspects to give the basis for a decision for the government, for the people, for the doctors, for the hospitals. And it is very useful. And I think it is a under considered matter. And now I understand a little bit why, because it gives you a lot of power of understanding that it's not just one methodology in science, and it's not especially in health and in people who are healthy. So let's go. So I wait. Yeah. So I have divided this in three. One is the global policy level, because you cannot understand what WHO and what is happening in the world without understanding the bigger picture of the United Nations and everything that have done alliance with the private sector, with the World Economic Forum, etc. And I realized that in the years that I really had to show that picture so people can take action for the violation, a massive violation of their rights at the international level, like at the national and local level. And then WHO and the International Health Regulation, which they keep on using and violating with the COVID study. And then some of the legal violation and international national instruments, violation of your inalienable natural rights and constitutional rights. This we have already talked about in the last program you did with I was there, so they can go and look at it again in the details when Katie was there also. So this is a slide I have also changed, but I did that because in my perspective, the craziest thing is they're trying to create confusion of what can I believe, who can I believe, what can, and this has been ongoing. They're creating chaos, and if you don't stay grounded and keep a certain logic and hypothesis, I keep on hypothesis because then it confirms, and more I can say now it's confirmed. Since 4 years, we start to know what's going on. So the phase 1 and the phase 2, I divide them because the phase 1 was extremely important, and there has been prior, of course, entanglement with dictatorship, with the change of papers of constitutions that you did not even see, where they don't want you to mingle with the international, for example, in your constitution. I think it's everywhere in the world. So phase 1, creation of fear and of words that were fearful, like a deadly virus, anxiety. And I'm glad you asked the question first, because I don't need to already demonstrate that so quickly. I'll come to it later. But this proves that it is scientific lies from the beginning. They needed that to create a deception that people could not grab right away and fall into the trap of a false, fake pandemic we call infodemic. They have lied from PCR to everything they have created. Tests, terror, I call it. The public health lockdown, the tyranny of masks. The mask create pneumonia, bacterial pneumonia. Even Fauci wrote that the Spanish flu is because of the masks of bacterial pneumonia. And then the hydrogel that goes right into your skin, into your blood. We don't know where it comes from. We don't know what it's done with. I've always asked engineers to go and study that. And so don't take this hydrogel. Don't take those masks made in China paper. It's written on the box. This does not protect you. So go and look what surgeons use. But even that today, it's better you breathe through your handkerchief with essential oil or something, or not your cotton, and you have washed with chlorine, and you use that in the airplane. But don't use those masks. I say it already now. So hydrogel plexiglass in shops. Can you imagine the virus was jumping around, not jumping in the plexiglass? Things like that are so ridiculous. Distancing, cutting children from their parents, grandparents. You remember all this. This was a terror attack on human culture, human communities, human trust. To trust only those who are the terrorists, the government and the other private sectors and all the crowd there behind. So it's now we know that, and it's proven that there is a fraud of evidence, there is systematic deception of fraud of evidence, and we have now a new police of scientific police. It's the fast checker, the fact checkers. Even when you are in the tribunal, the lawyers of the opposition comes with saying, no, the fact checker said this and said that. But behind the fact checker, of course, the private sector has replaced all the scientific journals. But by the way, Bill Gates and Gavi have bought all the scientific journals, like the Systematic Review of Cochrane, one of the top journal, to decide if you do this or if you did that in science, as well as many newspapers, by the way, and WHO. Anyway, we will see that. So 220, remember, no more deaths. The 2021, but they created behavior. I must say, they created a cycle behavioral pattern. And they were ready to roll out since 2019, where the vials had been fabricated, we know that, and since even before, this injection, experimental, that they sold like a new technology that doesn't need any other approval, then it is a technology, and we don't need to do the trials. And we are actually doing the trials, but they did not disclose the trials. They did not disclose what was in the vials. We know they lied. There are documents now who have oxide graphene, horrible things in there that they have not disclosed, and they have forced the consent of everybody. And that's where even my postman, he understood, that you don't force people to do things with that like that. It was the emergency situation. And I was talking to a strategist yesterday, Politico, and he said something very interesting that I had not thought about before. They create a state of emergency, and this state of emergency is war. It is the equivalent of a war on people. I add people, because when you have a war, it is a constant state of emergency. And all over the world, they're using the state of emergency. Even Switzerland, they have created an epidemic law that is new before all this COVID, to prepare that we are going to be in a state of emergency until 2030, 31 for some. So this is very important, because that we're going and upgrading to the political level a situation of war that is promoted by UN agencies and WHO especially, because WHO has a key role in that with member states and the private sector, of course. So the pharma, the vaccine industry, and by the way, it's probably all the same consortium behind, but definitely Bill Gates, who was at the head of the global vaccine plan of WHO from 2010 to 2020. I'll show you in the next slide. But okay, I'll try to go not, I'll show you later, so I have to go a bit quicker. So 2021, global policy of a clinical trial, open site. Normally, clinical trials are with 50 people, 100 people, especially when it's dangerous. And if you have 1-2 deaths, you stop the trial. There, it was open air, free surf, I call it. And there were 50 deaths after 1 month. By VIRS, ultravigilance, and even your system monitoring, we should have stopped. Nobody talked about it. Nobody was censoring that. And worse, they did not make the autopsy of the death. If somebody did the autopsy of the dead people who had presumed a link with the injection because it happened on site or 1 day after or the same day, they were forbidden. This is also a tyranny war situation that you can analyze. So forced consent, abuse of consent, abuse of the weak, trying to go to people who are handicapped, cannot give their consent, or children and families in schools, etc., etc. It's so much fraud and evidence of a tyranny that I'm just saying it again. So experiment, no validation, no justification, no ethics. This would never have been validated in the Research Ethic Review Committee I was part of for 4 years as independent expert in WHO. So it was extraordinary. I thought it's not possible. So you see that this whole 2 first years were fundamental to take over the world and the people, because if everybody had said, no, we don't agree, it would not have worked. And this is where we have to really come back to a reasonable consciousness of people with no fear, heal your fear. It's really very important. So phase 2, and you see already it started before, but the total control of the world, and that became very obvious with 2 slides that I will show with genome editing and how the digitalization of the world with ID of passports. It was already there in 2022. And I thought, what the heck is this? The digital ID for vaccination. So they started to roll it out slowly, but it went towards cash control, control of energy, and of course, smart cities. And the internet, that smart cities, because the World Economic Forum has a meeting in 2019. I'll show you a slide for that. And I did not cut it off because everything went together in the AI world up to today, with this summit taking place in Geneva this week. But what is more shocking is that we discovered already in 21, but now we can talk about it because I was censored on that immediately. It's that a lot of researchers had looked at the vials and saw there was nothing biological. There was nanotech, there was a microchip, there was RFID, and it is the Internet of Things, the Internet of Body Networks was being put in place through this injection and through all the injection. And if you think about it, if you do a trial, you make 1 injection, and then you evaluate the injection and you look at the longitudinal effect after 1 year, 2 years, because in a child, for example, or a pregnant woman, you cannot vaccinate because the fetus is going to develop with that agent in it. So why did they do a second injection, a third, a booster, and blah, 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 blah? Yeah, because this is a perpetual agenda to chip and to inject some kind of nanotech, nanorouter. We will see later. But a very famous Australian is Dr. David Nixon, who I invited on French TV, and I was the translator. And he just showed very simply and very convincingly what he observed in the vials. There are some people who look at what is blood, and then we try and find solutions, you see, because we can see what's happening. So that was an important slide to see that this going towards an agenda of electrifying and kind of transhumanizing the world, which I cannot not say after 5 years. Okay, so global policy level. So I think today we can go much further. It is a world coup d'etat that has been organized since, if not before, the First World War and the Second World War. And this is what I call the totalitarian kraken. Because when you understand that, you understand that this is much bigger than you ever had thought about. And it makes sense to me today because I worked with many of those agencies, not just WHO, that today there is really a problem of governance, and this is the one world government. So I'll explain where I was questioning this morning. If they have the question, where is the power? Where does everything reside? Well, all those bubbles here, you have green, yellow, blue, and in the down again a bit of green, yellow, are different bodies of the United Nations. So you have the subsidiary bodies, and another subsidiary. It's very complex. So, but what is interesting is the special agencies: ILO, the International Labour Office, WHO, International Migrant Office, the World Meteorological Organization, good for chemtrails, etc., etc. And you have those other bodies on the left, and then down below you have more departments and offices. So it's a very complex, but the governance goes on the left. The left, and I put very big green, the General Assembly. The General Assembly is like in a consortium, an NGO. It's a central committee where where you have a secretariat. So there is a secretariat. It's Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General, who was before head of the UNHCR, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. Always refugees and immigrants is a big topic in the world, as you see. So he is now the Secretary General, and I looked this morning, since 2017. So he has not moved now for almost 10 years. And that's where all the presidents, prime ministers, heads of countries meet in September every year in New York, in the big, nice assembly. They take the floor, is filmed. Last year, the Argentinian president made a very good speech on all the corruption of the UN and the fraud. So we see that there is free speech, and they're following a bit the US. But the US has also made speeches through their president or their representative. And the US has not yet quit or suspended its membership to the UN, but President Trump said, I think we should dismantle the United Nations. Well, it's not bad, but we have to dismantle. And I'll explain you what I think is really the most important, and then we'll go to WHO. So this General Assembly decides for your future. Last year in September, they signed on your behalf, without your consent and without your consultation, the Charter of the Future, the UN Charter of the Future, which has in it, the bubble I showed you before. It's the digitalization of the world with AI. So they are taking decisions without your consent. It is a one world government. Every country is a member corporation. And sometimes it's very interesting. Words are very interesting. Is that normally it's member states. And lately they have changed to say member parties. They're not using member states. Sometimes they use member parties. And member parties can be NGOs, private sector. And so it seems like there is even a shift that they're starting to show that our countries are not countries. So anyway, normally it should be our representative at the government who goes and takes a seat every year there. But ultimately, if there is a war, if there is like a world war, like we are living today, actually, if we consider this as a genocide and we say, we the people want now to say no, how can we do that? Well, it's very difficult, and I will show you why. Because the most important is the Security Council that decides for peace and war. You see, after that, you have the International Court of Justice and the Trustee Council, which I really don't understand, so I can't explain. But let me show you the graphic that explains the head of the Kraken. So the Security Council has a council that decides for justice, for war, and peace. So they have a veto power for 5 permanent, we call them the 5 Ps, the 5 permanent members with power of veto since the Second World War. They took the Second World War as an excuse to create the First World War, the Société des Nations, the League of Nations, and they were not all countries. And then they created the United Nations. Not all countries first adopted that. It was 51 countries, and then more and more. I don't know where Australia stands, but it will be interesting to see when they came as a member. But what is clear is that the nomination of the Secretary General is by the Security Council. The member states can present, but it is finally the Security Council deciding. Another problem is that they are in charge of the peacekeeping operation and the peace forces. But not only, they're also in charge of the Convention on Bioweapons. And I looked into that, and actually we should today call it the biotech weapon. And so have they used that on purpose, and they have tried to keep us all, in the blues, not knowing, ignorant? Because DARPA is using biotech and chipping soldiers since the 40s, 50s. It's not new. The technology is so advanced in the military innovation. I was looking into that in my research always, because that's where they have already healed paraplegics, etc., etc. So, yeah. So the peacekeeping forces. So I looked today. I thought I have to. So veto power. This means that any decision that this is taken, for example, for Gaza, those 5 permanent members, the Russia, China, France, USA, and England, can say no, and this no will forbid a peace resolution, or would forbid to move in there with peace operations. And for example, in the Iraq war, France said no to Iraq. They said no to Colin Powell, who said, we have the proof of Iraq, which was a lie, we know today. So France used it, and it didn't work anyway. So they're using that. But it's crazy, because why would they be the big 5? Because India is much bigger now today, even demographically, than China. So a big 5 of what, today? It doesn't make sense. And one of the big criticism when I was in the UN from the people and the scientists was, that we should not have that. Why it doesn't make sense. It is like a dictatorship of 5 countries that play the game that they are one against the other, or what is it? We can have a lot of supposition. But I looked at is there a commander-in-chief of the army in the UN? Is there a military? And the answer was that the force commander, he's used like this, is Under-Secretary General of the Secretary General. He's the Under-Secretary of the Secretary General. And he's a French guy who is also nominated since 2017. I didn't know that until this morning. And he's called Jean-Pierre Lacroix. And so he is the commander-in-chief of the peace operation. But where does he get his orders from? From the Security Council. So if you want to nominate a peace operation in Gaza, it's a member state who suggest that they want a Swiss military to do that, and then it is accepted or not by the Security Council. So I take this example because I'm very surprised to see it is a major of the army from Switzerland, Gaucher, who is the commander-in-chief. Well, he is the chief of operation, of peace operation for that Gaza Strip. And so I asked the question I digged a bit too more to say, what can people do to counter that? And they said, well, there is a mechanism called, it's a resolution 1950 of the UN, saying that you can call the emergency in 24 hours, the General Assembly of the UN, for uniting for peace. And you can try to pass a resolution to forbid the Security Council to go for or against something, or a genocide. But ultimately, it is the 5P who decide, even if they have many chairs and they move the chairs for the other countries every year, every 4 years. So we are in a deadlock there. And so is there a possibility, another possibility? And it's very difficult for people to oppose. They just have to, we should actually dismantle and suspend from bottom up, suspend our participation in our country so that this is not valid anymore. We have to find another mechanism. It is very complicated because we can go to the International Criminal Court with Nuremberg, but who decides for the judges is the Security Council. So we're there in something that keeps on turning on itself all the time. And I have a problem with that, really. And I asked if Australia is involved in that. And they say, in summary, Australia's role in UN military command is indirect and supportive rather than a current force commander, emphasizing training, capacity building, strategic support, and regional cooperation to strengthen UN peacekeeping effectiveness. So you see how complicated we are. All the member states are giving their army to the peacekeeping operations. We don't even have any decision. And then we're paying for that, but we don't even know. We are really the providers of work. Yeah. So I see here also that the solutions were to reform the Security Council of the 5P, for example, like to this uniting peace, but also to expand the Security Council membership to have more representativity and accountability, which doesn't make sense because it's already not accountable. And you cannot make a vote because the country is big or not by the population number or by the power of the country, of the military power. So the other thing is, they said, is to some activists advocate for creating alternative global security bodies or a United Nations Parliamentary Assembly. But I know there is a UN parliamentary in Geneva. The building is in Geneva. It is very obscure, and they take care of the finance of the UN. So they already have thought of a parliamentary United Nation, but it is not what you think it is. Go and look into it. And the last solution is saying that meaningful change depends on the willingness of the P5 themselves. So I have hope that President Trump is going to announce very soon that they're going to dismantle that, but let's see. But you see how it's very serious, because we were not, this one world government creeped in like a big octopussy kraken to take over the world without us even noticing. And here is, for example, that's the Security Council members, and then you have around the table non-permanent members, and they change, every 4 or 5 years. So it evolves, and there's like that. They did a elders group, but it's not working. With evidence today, somebody should have stood up there and say, this is not good, you shouldn't do that. And no, nobody did that. So let me show you the room where they meet, because it is very significant of this Security Council after the Second World War. That's the Security Council chamber. Wait, let me get this. Yeah, that's where they meet. That's the circle, and behind is a painting done by a Norwegian. I'm half Norwegian, and I magnified it a bit. Where is it here? And you can see scenes here that it doesn't matter. You can see scenes here that have nothing to do with UN. You see on the lower back, and I invite any artistic critics to go and study this, what it means, because it means there is a dragon on the left down, that they're taking the sword out of the dragon, etc., etc. We know in Geneva, it was said in the historical books that the Freemasons from Scotland, UK, and other Swiss, French, the 5 Ps, I guess, have created the UN. And, very proudly are showing that in paintings is very significant. So what are the two main documents of the United Nations? That's in French. Oh, yeah, I changed the Charter of the United Nations and Statutes of the International Court of Justice. And this holds the whole United Nations. Even WHO is referred as a specialized agency under Article at the 54 or 57 of the Charter. And then the status of the International Court of Justice, who will settle the disputes between member states or within the United Nations, if there is a problem. And the International Criminal Court sends the peace operations and blames who they want in a war, for example. So they have made this criminal court also a little bit strange. We cannot create Nuremberg 2.0 so easily. I think we have to, I was saying that to Rainer Filmisch, we have to create something else outside that system. Otherwise, we will always have conflict of interest. So the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a very important paper, but it's non-binding. It's very difficult to make a law that's binding. It's more the conventions and all the political instruments that go with it. So, but those are the two reference that they have massively violated during the 5 posterior years, if not before. And this, go and look at it. It is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It is very nice in words. It's exactly what they say. We are doing that for your equality. It is this for justice. We're doing this for peace and for your health. We are vaccinating you for your health. You're already healthy. What the heck? Anyway, we are born free and equal. Everyone has the right. They have changed some wording, actually, sometimes. You have to go to look at the original. But we have, nobody can force you to anything. You are free to meet. You are free to speak. You are free to everything. Nothing of that happened. And their big agenda was the Millennium Development Goal and the Sustainable Development Goal. And that was always my question. Where is ethics in all this? Because in the name of health, you see, that's the 17 main goal. There are 169. They make it very complicated to teach also. But this is the 17 most important goals. And somebody did a very smart slide, it's not me, where you can see that they put poverty and then they enact communism. And then they say, you have no hunger, but then they give you bad food and they want to edit you. They want health, and then they implement a pandemic, which cannot not exist, and vaccination, and a lot of treatments that they own. So you can study all of it. Climate change is part of the game of the business, and it is not only a huge business, it is a huge coercion of people. So very quickly, there is a UN budget. I started to tackle that since a week, and it is really complicated. But what is clear is that all member states, so we, the people, give our tax to our state, and the state has to dribble money to the UN budget and probably to all the UN agencies like WHO. So here is the contribution, and this was the last. Late was fun, and now I understand why Putin and Trump give a football ball. They are talking of the budget because the United States is not pulled out of the UN, but you can see there are a quarter of the contributors, but not talking about the Gongo, the government NGOs like USAID or Gavi or blah, blah. So now they have stopped USAID. Now they have stopped feeding up Gavi. So things are going to happen. I don't know where is Australia. It's down below. It's 1.6%. So it's just $1 trillion a year. Gosh, I don't know how they count the money really. So let's go, now that you understood this big kraken, you can go and study it and go and look into it a bit deeper to understand what's really going on.
Astrid, just to go back to that slide, that soccer ball.
Oh yeah.
Australia 1.3 trillion.
There is a T.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looks like, yeah. Because you see, United States is 19 T, so it's trillion. It's the whole United Nations, so maybe it includes the WHO. I took it because it looked like the best way to present, but I'm sorry I did not put the reference, but you could find it if you type UN budget and image. Yeah, I think that's it. But I don't understand how they can do that. So is it, you see, there is another problem with when they declare funds. You saw the slide before. They promise in the regular budget here. You don't have, that's billion. Due net contribution, total budget. So here you have billion and the other one trillion. So here is probably only one part of the UN. I don't understand now that you're saying it. Yeah, what I want to say is that they promise, like in humanitarian aid, they say, we are agreed to put so many funds, but what is really given is another question. And we don't know if it is part of the debt. There is no transparency in the budget. That's what I want to display now that we are looking at it. I'm very surprised, of some countries, how much they give. Well, let's leave it open to dig.
Yeah. Astrid, just one last thing too. Back to that UN budget, US paid their dues. That's very poignant because a lot of these people that are voting, these member states that are voting, aren't financial, are they?
Um, what do you mean? I didn't understand the question. The member states are voting. Yes, they are voting.
Well, they're voting, but they're not financial members.
Yeah. Well, if you put contribution, what do you call financial members? Because they are financial members as member states. They have dues of contribution every year. There's a yearly contribution.
But they're
So here
voting
it's.
and they haven't paid.
So you've got all
Oh, I see. I see. It's those who did not pay.
Yeah.
You're right. A very good point. Yeah.
and look at the countries that haven't paid in full. The USA,
Yeah. Russia,
Russia, China,
all the Middle East.
all the Middle
Yeah.
East, and Australia, India, Canada, Greenland, parts of Europe, and most of Europe, and it looks like around Morocco, they've all paid, but everyone else is either hasn't paid or they're late or.
Yeah. Very good point. I didn't. Yes, and this is June 22, 2022. So it's very interesting your question because it means that Mexico did not pay, for example. Oh, and even the United States. Yeah. Yeah, we don't have the end of the year, but it could be actually, you're right, they did not pay, and did they really pay? We
Wow.
don't know.
And I've heard this said previously that a lot of the United Nations isn't keen to obviously get rid of these member states that aren't paying because they're the ones that are supporting them in their agendas.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, but that could be actually a very interesting legal point to say that their vote is not valid because they did not pay their due. Because if you are part of a society, any business society or NGO, if you haven't paid, normally you're excluded by the statutes. But the problem with the UN, and yeah, that's good, I can say it now, is there is no exclusion article or provision in the Charter of the United Nations or in the Constitution of WHO to exit or to divorce. If you marry, you always have a way to divorce. But with the UN, there's no article. There is, like I said before, that you cannot. There is no legal text that will allow you to get out, which is crazy. But so even if you don't pay, but it doesn't mean that you can vote. So it would be interesting to dig in the charter, but also in the country legal way to represent us and pay and vote. You're right. It's very important. Thank you for. I think that's very good that we discussed
when you
that.
look at the square to the left alongside the USA, the paid net contributions are 47.3%, and the due net contributions, in other words, the contributions that haven't been paid, are 52.7%.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more than half.
Mm.
So actually, their voting mechanism is not valid anymore if we take it like that, right? If they say that we need 2/3 of the votes. Oh, that's a very good point for your organization, John. That's really, I think you should go into it. Yeah, you see, I thought, okay, I put WHO budget. I need to put at least some slides on the UN, but I never thought that would, a good relation. Yeah, and all South America.
Yeah.
China and Russia. So actually, what's interesting is that in the Security Council, which we just discussed, the US, Russia, and China are the three that have not paid. So they have no veto. They should not even have a right to veto anything. So that's where you get the dismantling of the UN, actually. maybe that's what they planned. That's a very interesting point, because as of June 22, they were budgeting for 2022. And the
Okay.
non-member, I think there's only one island, and now it is Tonga, who has now joined the UN. It's the smallest island in the Pacific, north of Australia, who creates the time, the zero time. I saw that because there is a big panel in front of the UN ITU, the Telecommunication Union, which shows Tonga has joined the United Nations 194th country. Tonga, I think it is, yeah. Or, yeah. Yeah, so, okay, that's something to maybe further investigate. I can see also with you that. So anyway, let's go to, I mean, for the auditors who have never, the participants who have never seen that, I guess that they will have a shock, because they see that the Kraken is huge. And now we're just going to take one agency that is the door open to the dictatorship on health, on death, on sickness, and on health in all policy, what we were discussing before. They have managed to find where the poison can go in all the agencies and in all sectors of life. So it was created by the United Nations after World War II. It's important because many say today, and I agree, that the Nazi have not disappeared. They just went under different names, like the Bush family or Schäfer, a Nazi from Germany, and they changed names and they changed identity and they made surgery, and then the man or woman and blah blah. Even Barbara Bush is questionable if it's not Aleister Crowley, and things like that are going around, and everything can happen. Anyway, they went to Argentina and to USA and to Switzerland, their secretariat. Somebody said to me yesterday, I said, yeah, it's not a bad. So after World War, they created 1948 with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and it was validated by Eleanor Roosevelt, the wife of President Roosevelt. So now I understand that this was all a coup d'etat already then to take over the people, because they did not lose the Second World War. It's still going on, or it is the World War III in another form than the World War II. The armaments are, for example, health, the vaccines, and radiations, and the 5G, etc. We will talk about it. So WHO network and funding, just that people understand. Yeah, so this that's just a slide to explain quickly what I just said. There is one secretariat in Geneva. It is the headquarters. It has not changed. And it is 6 very powerful regional offices. In our lectures and training, we were tackling by region, train people to know how to manage, surveil, monitor emergencies. On their own term, tailor-made, not standardized like it was the case. That was a massive violation of the IHR. So it's called like that, Euro, EMRO, Afro. You're part of CIRO, right? I think. PAO is the Americas, etc. So World Health Assembly every year, like every agency, meets every year and much more, but officially once a year, a big assembly to take the key strategic decisions of an agenda, of resolution, of going on. But they can have extra meetings like they've had also with WHO in 2022, I think. The current head is Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, Ethiopia, known, who was in Gavi before he went in, he was chosen and elected, I think by force, as head of the WHO, but he's not a doctor, he's not a medical doctor, and he has in his past been head of terrorist groups in Ethiopia. It's known, the Tiger or something. He was on the board. He had no signature, because you can see in the papers of Gavi. First time also that a DG is elected or re-elected every 4 years. He can only take 2 terms or 3 eventually. And I know this from internally, that Ethiopia did not represent him. So he was re-elected in 2022 against his own country, which is a violation of the UN Charter and the WHO Constitution. So just to see that they don't obey any law, not only in your country, but even in the United Nations. They just do what they want. Oh yeah, this I have to take here. And problematic issues. Yeah, the DJ has been sued in several court cases, of which rhinofilmage in 2020, Drosden and Tedros, but many have deposited crimes against humanity at The Hague. No response, never a response. You don't get a response from the DJ. The staff has been changed completely end of 2022. After they made their crime, they were muted. And now the chief scientist is from Wellness Company, a private company. Sir Jeremy Farrar, he's now today head of science. Another problem is clear public-private partnership, and it's overruling the private sector is lobby, and not only lobby today, they have their hands on everything. I'll show you in a slide. So they are totally compromised, directed as a corporation and not as described as the WHO Constitution, where member states keep their sovereignty, Article 2 of the Constitution, etc. Normally, member states request the WHO to intervene. They request expertise of WHO if they want, because they have their expertise in their own country. And this has not been done or abused by the country who had already put in a scientific committee that was bought into the private sector. So it was difficult for people to understand, of course. And here I just put a slide so you understand why Geneva. Because when I was organizing those big summits for volunteer, for sport, peace and development, for things like that, where I believed was very good, I had to make the mapping a bit of all the agencies, and there are 43 international agencies, organizations of the United Nations in Geneva, and 3 more in Switzerland. We have also all the World Federation of the Olympic Games. We have the Olympic Committee. We have the FIFA, we have UEFA. It's much more. We have the Bank of International Settlement in Basel. We have 180 states, but much more represented with a permanent mission to the United Nations. So this is a little detail that I realize is a key to what's going on, and I have to let you know. There is, for example, the big countries like India, Russia, USA, and I don't know if Australia has the same, but you all have a permanent mission to the United Nations. You have a general ambassador to the United Nations, but then there are 2 others. There's an ambassador to disarmament and an ambassador to the World Trade Organization. And sometimes, and very often, you have sub-secretariat for health. So when the WHO meets, the delegation of Australia would go and co-opt who they want to take them with the delegation and the person appointed by the ambassador or who is in the embassy to the World Health Organization and to all the meetings during the whole year. So Geneva has become a territory of the one world government. It is not just WHO. It is written here that we have more annual visits of head of states than any other place in the world. State and government ministers and other dignitaries. And New York finally has some departments and some UN agencies, but because of many visa problem and war against Muslims, etc., they have much more difficulties to come in. So Geneva is the turning point for everything, and peace agreements, etc. It is like my friend colleague said, Switzerland is the secretariat of the globalists. Gosh, and the World Economic Forum is just opposite the UN, and we also have the CERN, which is an essential agency with exactly the same statutes as other agencies, who is taking care of things that are very mysterious. I've made some lives on that. They take care not only of subatomic particles, but of radiation, of time and space change, of black holes and wormholes and things we don't understand. But they have many CERNs everywhere, and they are linked to a very important agency of the United Nations that takes care of radionuclear events, has more power than WHO. In case of radionuclear event, WHO is forbidden, but this agency is the International Energy Atomic Agency, located in Vienna, with the drug agencies also. So there is another place that is very strategic. It's Vienna. Yeah, that was important to say because I don't say that often. So let's come back to the system of the Kraken. And here you have WHO, who is engulfing everything. All those agencies have a link and are working as partners with WHO. For example, International Labour Office, the Food and Agriculture, the UNESCO, which is in Paris, takes care normally of science and culture, but actually they have books on genome editing, and they take care of sports, etc. So I've been involved in all those big events where I was thinking, why is this taking care of religion, UNESCO, when there are not part of that, of the UN religions in technical, there's a World Council of Churches, but just beside WHO, but it doesn't take all the religions. Anyway, that's mysteries to me. Another interesting that I have to mention, you can see the International Monetary Fund, etc. There is ICAO and IATA, and those are the two biggest companies, the International Civil Aviation Organization and the International Transport Association, which is part of those have been mentioned. We were mentioning them when we were training the people for the international health regulation, how to manage emergency. You have to make sure that travel keeps on for commercial means. It is in IHR. This is one of the most important decision, is to lock down airplanes, to ground them, sorry. So it was very easy. They had already pre-prepared one world, how do they call it? One world aviation. There is some, I think it's called One World. When you miss an airplane, they have to call a central called One World. So it already exists. They don't call IATA and ICAO, but they are part of the system. So it's very easy. They have taken bubbles, bigger bubbles of the bubbles, and WHO has been collaborating with them for a long time. So, and then you have the World Meteorological Organization, which I also created Master of Public Health there. We were doing sessions in the whole UN for students. They were lucky for that. And now I understand that the problem of chemtrails also has to be tackled there. Like the International Telecommunication Union, who is also an agency, and who is saying that AI is for good, but WHO says that your mental health ambassador is Sophia, the AI robot. And this was 2 years ago. I went to this AI for good meeting just to listen and have a feeling. And yes, they have robots. They want to replace doctors now. It is announced by MIT. I posted that on my Telegram. They have decided that doctors now, medical doctors now, that they have really trapped them so badly in their position to force the vaccination, pay them for that, they are going to be replaced by an AI. And the medical doctors who listen, whether you think that you were on the good side and that you were saved because you're with the strong people, well, they are preparing a plan to replace, lawyers, medical doctors, and teachers, and many other things. Children are already starting to be trained with the gaming to virtual reality, that the virtual reality is your parents. So we have to be very, very careful with that agency. But they are in Geneva.
This is a perfect model for fascism.
Yes.
It is. It's everything's controlled. Communism as well. World Council of Churches was set up because you have to control the churches so that you you can bring them into line with church and state. That was set up in 1968 by the KGB,
Oh, well,
World
yeah,
Council of Churches. So you win the churches over, and you've got the separation of church and state is gone. So you've virtually got a free reign. There's no one holding this organisation to moral account.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the World Council of Churches, to add, is normally non-Catholics. Not Catholics are not there.
No.
It's not by chance. Orthodox are there, but sometimes yes, sometimes not. But the other religions, Buddhist and Hindu, and are taken to meetings sometimes. They do interreligious. But this meeting, the summit of spiritual and religious leaders that took place in New York in August 2000, which I had helped to convene, I know, and I can tell you what happened is that I thought I was beautiful, all the spirit of the world having one God, but now that I see what they want to do, one religion is also part of their one government. But there it was nice because there you had all the faiths, the cultures, giants, women, the indigenous people, and I suddenly started seeing something very strange. It's that CNN, Ted Turner was behind that the Hinduja Foundation, the bank, was sponsoring, that the Rudolphin, a Jewish marketing agency, was coordinating everything. And I even met them. And I was like, and the daughter of Rudolphin was accompanying the Secretary General Bawa everywhere. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on? They're mapping the religions of the world. What better thing to do than to convene a world organization on a topic and to map everything? I never thought about it until that moment. And what happened is that we were invited to the World Economic Forum. So they created the World Religion Organization, and the World Economic Forum made them the stars of the closing ceremony with 6 faiths calling for peace. That looks all very nice. But in fact, I looked and dig the other texts that followed up. Actually, they create the C100 of leaders of religions. And that explains why the religions were hacked completely. They were paid. There were no religious leaders dared to say, don't take the vaccine in public. He would be killed or something would happen to him. So this was extraordinary. C100. And who was the leader? Guess. Archbishop of Canterbury, the Queen. The Queen, who is head of the religious orders and the army in England.
Yeah.
So so for you, it's important because you're a Commonwealth also. So anything going towards the Queen and Archbishop of Canterbury would rule you. This is how they think.
People are going to ask why the Catholic Church isn't involved in the World Council of Churches, because the World Council of Churches is designed to bring Protestant faiths back into the Catholic Church, back into the Vatican. That's why Pope Francis embraced all of these religious leaders, so that the Catholic faith through the Vatican, through the papacy, is designed to be the new one world religion. And the World Council of Churches is just subduing all the other religions to bring them in line. So it's a masterstroke. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, you're right. And I find out, that there is an alliance between the Vatican, the City of London, and Washington since what was it, 1800s?
Yeah.
Yeah, like a small world government already. One would take care of this, one would take care of that. That has been apparently dismantled in 2018 by Trump, but it's still there. And maybe now you're right. I didn't think about that. They have a problem is that the Protestants have infiltrated the Catholics. I mean, no, not the Protestants have been infiltrated by the Freemasons. That the Freemasons also in the Catholic Church in the Vatican, and I think it's Pope Leon 13, which was no 11, I 3, I don't remember. Pope Leon of 500 years ago, he made an encyclic. It is this intellectual text against the Freemason, warning against the Freemason. So they have many of those secret societies, non-transparent, that are operating everywhere.
Well, if you look at the document Rerum Novarum that was written by Pope Leo XIII in 1900, he lays the foundation for the Great Reset because he says that nobody has the right to own anything, that somebody can take something off you. It's all about the destination of goods, and it's a perfect foundation for what's happening right now. It's the foundation for what's going on with the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset. It's just unbelievable to
Oh,
see this all playing out.
the current Pope, you mean?
No, the predecessor to Pope Leo the 14th was Pope Leo the 13th,
Oh, yeah.
who reigned in the last part of the 1800s into the 1900s during the
Oh,
first
that's why he
industrial
took
revolution.
this name.
That's right. And that's why, and you had Francis, who was there to bring all the religions together and end the Protestant Reformation, which he did 500 years after Martin Luther nailed his thesis to the wall, to the door in Germany to start the Protestant Reformation. And Pope Francis ended the Protestant Reformation 500 years after it started. And now he's finished, he's gone. And now you've got Rerum Novarum being reactivated again by Pope Leo the 14th. It's all laid out. It's unbelievable to see it play out.
That's crazy, huh? It's very important to say that so people don't get trapped into that.
Oh, yeah.
Get their spiritual sovereignty back, because that's a big problem. Even the text, the Book of Enoch has not been looked. Nobody knows what the Talmud is. I mean, I didn't know. So, but I knew that I could not read the Bible without knowing why they always put woman as a saint or a prostitute. You know, I always thought as a woman the religion was really very gender biased. And so I never could completely believe what was going on.
Yeah. This is
Yeah,
incredible. Absolutely incredible.
incredible. That's very interesting. Wow. Yeah, there's a lot to say to that. So anyway, so WHO had actually for mental health, I have kept the papers because I was looking in the UN, where is religion and morals and law? And I found an old text which it was religious leaders for mental health. They had assigned religious leaders on mental health. So that's maybe what they want to do also. But that's in the past. I couldn't believe they did not. It was a good idea, but anyway. So if we go to the contribution, I have 3 slides because I'll go to the private sector. This one, and sorry, yeah, on 2020. So that's the World Health contribution, net contribution payable by member states. Now, it's like the other one. I put it quickly because I thought it was a very interesting slide. You can please decode it with me because, yeah, now you see it better. Net contribution payable for 2020. So again, we don't know who paid or not, but Australia has one of the top score.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you put this into context, I mean, some of these figures, I mean, some individuals in Australia are contributing more to save the pussycats or something. You know, like it's you know, look at Croatia, 368,000. I mean, it's really ridiculous.
Oh yeah, I see. Yeah, that's a very good analysis of what country pays or not. So Russia is not paying, or am I seeing badly here?
Can't see Russia there at all.
Oh, 12 million. Oh, here.
Oh, yeah, 12 million, yeah.
But it's small compared to
Even Japan. Japan, 41 million.
It's strange because yeah, they were attacked in the Second World War heavily.
Well, there we are paying $11 million in Australia, and Russia pays $1 million more.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah,
I
so
mean,
Russia knows, huh?
New Zealand, 1 million. Singapore, 2 million. You know, the whole thing's just completely out of kilter.
Saudi Arabia, 6 million.
Mm.
Yeah, that's very, and Switzerland, 6 million. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's crazy because we're not transparent with finance. And it has never been transparent, the UN. I always thought that
Well,
I'm
and I think
not
the
an
problem is
economist.
is too, Astrid, that these figures, that might be what they pay on an average basis, but they make one-offs as well. Like I know, Penny Wong recently in Australia, I think she made 100 million contribution or something to the WHO, uh, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean,
So
yeah,
that would count. We don't know if that would count,
it probably
actually.
doesn't. It probably doesn't come up on the.
Yeah.
No, it's a
Yes. So the net.
supernumerary,
Yeah.
supernumerary contribution just out of the goodness of her heart.
Yes.
Everybody watching, Penny
That's
Wong,
strange. And what's her
unbelievable.
interest
What's her
to do
interest?
that?
Well, she's a puppet of the Chinese government.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
She's a puppet of the Chinese government. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's money laundering. We don't know everything that's going in the dark finance. There's dark net and there's a dark economy, I guess. Yeah. Because
But
if you take what?
we
Yeah.
we have homeless people in Australia living in tents because they cannot afford accommodation. We've got no housing. People are paying through the roof for groceries to live. And our foreign minister gives $100 million unsolicited off the top of her head to the WHO.
Yeah.
For goodness sake, Johnny. Anyway, keep going, Astrid. We're going to run out
Okay.
of time if we keep
Yeah.
interjecting.
Yeah. But this is more what we see. And I took the data in 2018, 2019, because today I'm not sure everything, and I have another slides here. But what I want to demonstrate with that, because now you have the private sector, you don't have this Chinese lady, but you have Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation #2, and you have Gavi, which is Bill Gates, #4. If you add 371 to 531, you have the same amount, more than United States
More than the United States. And
in 2018 and 2019.
you've got Rotary International there, 143 million.
Yes, I forgot that. Yeah, you can, and that's also a very strange organization.
The
Yeah,
World
and
Bank.
yeah, the World Bank is everywhere. So you have to know one thing, and that's, I will say it later, but I can say it now. The World Bank and WHO have paid Gavi, signed a contract with Gavi in 2005, called International Finance Facility Program for Immunization, where they promised to give money to Gavi every year for immunization and vaccinating. So that's where I get Gavi is a part of this big time. They have started, I'll say it now, they started with Institute of Depopulation in 1999, and they thought, yeah, it is not very elegant as a name. They probably realized, and they put Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, then Gavi in 2006 as a foundation in Switzerland. 2009, it became an international organization with full immunity, sponsored by the state and us. And in 2019, they had the big business in a building of 10 storage, 3 aisles, just beside WHO. And they are definitely, from what you see, they are directing the agenda of WHO. And Bill Gates asked at the executive committee in 2016 in WHO. I was just in front. So my friends in WHO said, today, Gavi, Bill Gates is asking to be a partner as a country. And I was shocked, and we were all shocked, and it was refused. But I think today it is part of it. It was probably under the carpet what happened. Here you have a more recent one. It's 2022. It corresponds the same. You have Rotary, Gavi, and Bill and Melinda Gates. And this time, if you put them together, I think, yeah, it's again about
the same.
8, 12, 13. Yeah, they go just before US. So you imagine now US has pulled out. It's going to make a huge change. I know from my friends in the UN that I get some feedback sometimes. The head of Human Services and accountability accounts said that she's even worried for her position at the United Nations, because agencies are shifting, are canceled. There's a big move that nobody's talking about. But internally, you see really there is much less activity than ever before. So, oh, I have to put my plug in because otherwise I'll put you the next slide.
And not only that, I mean, when you look at the conflicts of interest here, I mean, you've got Bill Gates, who's got significant interest in pharmaceutical companies in terms of shareholding and all sorts of stuff. Now, I mean, when you look at all this, I mean, it's unbelievable that this is allowed to go on. I mean, it just makes this entire World Health Organization corrupt.
Oh yeah, it's a business for me today. I didn't feel that before, but I always saw, especially some English people were very clear for me that the hospital organization was there, the mental health, as an NGO, but I felt it was much more than that. It was really a power situation, power grab already then. So I think it is always been a business from the beginning, but they're using the useful slaves that are there and believe in this organization. And we didn't know. Now that we know, I mean, I could not work for something like that, but a lot of people are working because they have to pay their dues and they're entangled in that. Yeah, so here I say that Gavi and the Gates Foundation and Bill and Melinda Gates have bought all the faculties of medicine, I think, in the world, because all the ones I checked have had funds from one or the other, or they have Ponzi schemes, to hide their name behind other big bubbles. But it is a WHO private partner. You can look they have big organizations together and meetings in Berlin. Oh, sorry. It's the first consortium to contribute 90% of, I don't know, I think that's a mistake. Anyway, 4 million Bill Gates for newspaper, media science, and also faculties of medicine, and this is wrong. Oh yeah, no, it might be right. It's 19%. Anyway, this is wrong. So here is another one where you see the US contribution to Gavi, and now Kennedy just announced that they are stopping the budget to Gavi. So you can imagine what this is going to create, because
I think it's very important to highlight what you just had back on that previous slide, Astrid, in relation to the Cochrane, because the Cochrane reports and the Cochrane faculty stuff is what they go to as the gold standard in research on COVID vaccines, data, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's not, so the Lancet and all those. How many times, Hoodie, have we had it thrown back in our face? Oh, but they're not peer reviewed. They're not recognized scientific journals. I mean, here it's clear, and this is why this is a clear and present danger to us going forward, is that these organisations have been infiltrated and bought, and the information they're giving out, spewing out the other end, is biased.
Yes. And what happened with Cochrane systematic review, is that Goetz, who is a Danish doctor who created that with a partner, was thrown out of the direction of it because Bill Gates pushed his way in financially. Wow. And he complained, of course, but he couldn't do anything. That was in 2020 or 2019. So he wrote books. Now he wrote books on corruption in the vaccines. So he's a very interesting person to follow today, Goetz, Goetz. So that's a model of what they have done in all the reference, like you say, systems to decide evidence-based information decision-making. That was a department I worked with in WHO, and I thought it was a great term. But if the private sector owns that, that's the problem. It's the biggest business of their life to create, pharma and lies. Yeah, and labs. I was shocked that the Faculty of Medicine and all my colleagues at the faculty that I was inviting to teach and this and collaborating, not one said no. And they were all bought into the system, and they went on TV with behind the Pfizer marketing or Moderna, or And this is never happened before. So it was really prepared with the media, and he is paying also the media. I didn't know that he was paying Le Monde in France and many newspapers, key newspapers. So of course he owns the media, he owns the faculties of medicine, the labs, the WHO. The game is easy with money. But not only with money, with networks of people saying yes. Yeah, that's really. But so the next slide just reinforces that, but also how it works. You see the key organizations that are immunization partnership of Gavi are World Health, World Bank, the UNICEF, and it's also with Bill and Melinda Gates. He has 3 or 4. But you see, donor country governments give to the World Bank, to WHO, but also to Gavi through those organizations. So it's research agency, private sector partners, vaccine manufacturers, civil society. All of them today are partnership without knowing what we're doing with the money. Because civil society organizations, and I was teaching that the NGOs can be gongos, government NGO like USAID. It can be bingos, business interested NGOs. They can be WONGO, the world organizations of NGOs, and that's the worst ones because they hold everything in their pocket. And then you have the faith organizations, etc. They have always an agenda, and the agenda was converging in 2016. I think that started. Here you have an interesting slide. And I thought it was interesting to show, it is, I can't read the slide because there is something here. Oh yeah, like that. Yeah, that's the donors to Gavi from 21 to 25. So that's US millions. Where is Australia? Here, 366. So you contributed $366 million to Gavi in 4 years.
Well, no wonder Bill Gates is having private meetings at the lodge with Anthony Albanese.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah. That's an interesting slide. We cannot go in detail, but you see, if United States stops its funding, it's 4,090 million.
And are they washing money through here? I mean, is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation funding their own setups? Gavi. I mean, why would you do that? Why would...
I don't think you see this thing they sealed in 2005 is very important. I didn't have made a slide yet, but I really should. This IFFIM, International Facility Finance for Immunization, is a kind of a system of bonds. It's a financial system mechanism where Bill Gates doesn't need to take any money out of the pocket. He pays people by, I heard this from an economist, that he pays things through bonds. So it is unseen. It comes as a benefit of your auction with Pfizer, with this, with that. So this IFFIM, there is a website. I invite the viewers to go and watch that. It's Gavi who organizes that. He is benefiting, and he said it openly many times. It is the best business is not computers. It is vaccination and the pharma. He said a crazy percent. I get so much in return. The return on investment is huge. So no wonder, on top of it, it goes with his depopulation agenda of his eugenic parents. His father was a eugenic, his mother too, in parenthood.
Planned Parenthood, yeah.
Yeah, so that was also an important. I think it's key. I never went so detailed in a presentation here. So I did that because people had to understand, and I can always come back if we don't have enough time or to go through. Gavi, I had to make sense of everything I'm telling, and I made a timeline. I thought, no, it's time. So in 1998, Institute for Depopulation, he collaborated with, of course, children. What a better thing to go with children to sterilize a population and stop them from growing. That's crazy. And in 2004, that's the year, contract signed. This was prepared by Goldman Sachs. So it's an idea coming, it's written in a paper, you have to dig for it in the internet by Goldman Sachs. So here you have this website, Gavi, WHO World Bank. Then in 2006, established as a foundation created in Switzerland, and he moved to this international organization. I have the papers of those and who was on board. So on board there was, for example, the head of the Office of High Commissioner of Human Rights, Mary Robinson, who was a former Prime Minister of Ireland, and she was part after her post at the UN, at the Human Rights Commission, she became, and Prime Minister, she became one of the heads of the committee, Gavi, with signature. Tedros had no signature, but she had a signature. So this means that she had a very big involvement in Gavi. And she was pretending doing human rights and ethics. You see how crazy this is? And the same with the head now, or the former head. Now it's a German Austrian who looks Nazi almost. And before it was Bachelet, who came for the second time, pediatrician from Chile. And she, pediatrician, was for the vaccine of children. You see, so they put in position people who are not ethical and go with their agenda. So 2009, the Secretariat of Switzerland adopted his total immunity, can come with organs in his suitcase. Nobody will stop him at the border. He can come in and out with. If somebody dies or there is a crime in the building, the police cannot enter without his permission. It is so bad. Wow. So, and then 2009, his big building paid by Switzerland and our tax. I don't know where it comes from, or sponsored maybe. I don't know. 2010 to 20, Gavi leads the WHO Global Vaccine Action Plan of WHO. And in 21 and on, he leads WHO, clearly leads the votes, leads, the vaccine deployment. And here is the paper you can find on internet. Always remember this number, EB 14025, to find it. Global Vaccine Action Plan. They showed it like that, but in the footnote and in the preparation papers, you always see Gavi, and you go, okay, we get it. He is obsessed in those papers. He makes a report in 2016, and he says, we have only vaccinated 50% of the world. We need to get everybody. So if you consider that there are chipping people also like that, let's say that it isn't just a chip, they need to vaccinate everybody so they can control and monitor from a distance through their space system, let's say, everybody, what you're doing at night, your how we call that, the biometrics of your daily life, when you sleep, when you eat, what you do, your body temperature, you can do that because Apple has already the system sold, to us public with a very small amount of data. But I was doing a lot of reviews on what you can do to live long. And I was actually promoting some of those biometrics, but I never thought that it can be used for bad. And now I know, yes, you can put a drone in a city and they can see how many people are vaccinated just by having a chip working over their phone, even just your phone, So we are in something new that we didn't know about. Anyway. That's very important for the youth. And here is what you were talking about. I think that's one of the best slides I got from even my friends in WHO. It's a depiction. Depiction of the accelerator plan of Gavi, and they put it in front of our nose. So WHO coordinates and supports the vaccine business with Gavi and CEPI. This is the European Alliance for Innovation. And this is from the beginning of 2020. They did that already. Development, manufacturing of vaccine, policy allocation, procurement. That's in the building. All this is the business in the building of 10 storage, just opposite WHO and the Intercontinental Hotel. Then you have the therapeutics, and who do you have? The Wellcome Trust, and he is the head of science in WHO, conflict of interest. We don't care. They don't care. Unitaid is a French company, but they have established themselves in WHO since at least 15 to 20 years. I always wondered, what the heck are they doing here? There were medication, there were treatments. So rapid assessment, market preparedness, deployment, costing and finance, and then the diagnostics. And this was already before Global Fund and FIND. It is also a very obscure organization. And you might recognize some names in who has created that. I did, from WHO. And this is where PCR comes in. But PCR is also owned by the International Atomic Energy Organization, the IAEA. So this is PCR, I suspect, has radiation and radioactive elements in it, and it has been proven to a certain extent with hydrogel and some stuff in there. Anyway, so you see that's the whole business, and it is official. You can get this slide, and the health systems are connected, so they have mapped everybody. They have the mapping. They have all the system from the government to the heads of hospitals, the head of association of medical, of nurses, of labs. They created bubbles above bubbles, and that's how they managed to do the tyranny they did since the beginning, because I couldn't understand how could they make everybody lock down from Alaska to the deserts to Indonesia and to Australia. That's how. Okay, is there a question with that? Because that's a very important slide. Yeah, and they always use total immunity for what is creating your lack of immunity. You see, HIV is a immunity syndrome. They call virus, but it's a problem of immunity, of lowering immunity. So that can be created many ways, and that's how they got a lot of attention.
Sorry, just go back there again. The one word that jumps out at me in that presentation is the word market. Market preparedness, market readiness.
Yeah.
It's all about the business, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes. I absolutely. It is the business. Yeah. And it is for your good and immunization. So it is a very cognitive dissonant discourse. We are doing business for your immunity when it is exactly the opposite. It's an immunity deficiency they're creating, like they did with SIDA. Yeah, it's syndrome of immune deficiency. That's what is happening. And that's why they wanted to put something in the body to create an immunity syndrome or medication that don't work, and yeah, we can say it now because we have proofs.
Community-led responses.
Yeah, and they have key people in every sector, like communists has, isn't it the same system?
That's the media, the mainstream media.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah. Oh, so the media, I have another intel, is that who is leading the media in WHO since at least 2016, and this is somebody who worked in WHO, not working anymore, who said to me, it is Astrid, it's McKinsey is getting contracts of millions and billions of contracts. They are a marketing agency, McKinsey, where the son of von der Leyen and the son of a French former president or minister, Fabius, are working. And they're also working, I think, with Deloitte. And they're doing all the marketing of the world, because it's a world always the same. Everybody gets the same information almost at same time. And they are doing the marketing, but not only the marketing of the wording, but they are doing the news of WHO, the agenda of WHO meetings, the press releases, of course, and the content. So they are managing all the narrative so that we never forget the keywords that trigger so much fear in people. So this is pretty terrible because they own AFP, Reuters, Associated Press, Reuters, and AFP, the French press, and probably more. So that's what you're talking about, the media and the TVs, and they're all obeying. It's a crazy, yeah. And this is the last slide of this section. That's what the slide that I was using for the training and the teaching from WHO of the global partnership and international collaboration to manage an epidemic. We could not speak of pandemic because a problem of pandemic is that in H1N1, an Eastern Bloc country bought for 1 million of Tamiflu. And then Margaret Chan said, no, it's finished. The pandemic is over. And they sued WHO. They said, you said it was a pandemic. We had to buy it. And now we are stuck with $1 million money. So they silenced this scandal. I was there. I was in WHO Europe giving a workshop. I organized a workshop for WHO Europe in Denmark for Eastern Bloc. And we were discussing that. We were discussing that you cannot declare a pandemic anymore because otherwise WHO gets sued. So the reasoning was a real country with real money who said, no, we don't agree. Today, you don't hear that anymore. So something definitely changed since that time. It was 2013 with the Eastern Bloc, one of the Eastern Bloc countries. I don't know if it's Tajikistan or Kyrgyzstan or something like that. Yeah, so so the International Global Partnership was already with all those groups, which are beyond WHO normally. But the World Tourism Organization is part of the chart I showed to you. The food industry, there is actually 4 typology of epidemic. And I was in charge of the case studies. It was the infection disease from animals or pathogens, but not only virus like today. And then there was food-borne disease, and that's where were to collaborate with the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organ, in case the contamination came from agriculture, like it did for the cucumber killer who made a few sick people, and they thought it was in the market, so they stopped the cucumber. They thought it was the cucumber who was contaminated. Finally, it was the fenugreek on the market in Europe, in Denmark. So the whole of Europe had stopped selling cucumbers when it was the fenugreek who came from Egypt. So you see how far a pathogen can go, and it stopped the business. So the peasants sued the European Union and they got finance back. So that's how it should have happened. But today it was agriculture, contamination, nobody talks about it anymore. So foodborne disease, then chemical outbreak and radionuclear outbreak. So here you have the nuclear outbreak with the International Atomic, now I know I say it right, International Atomic Energy Agency, which takes care of PCR, which takes care of radionuclear, who is involved in the wars. Wonder why, you go and look at that. That's I always said since the beginning, this is a very strange agency. And who decides and says, no, we don't create terrorist problems. They said it in our course, in our training. I was challenging them because there was a group from Chernobyl in France who said they have had a surge of terrorist problems. And they showed all the data. It was dismissed completely. And the heads of this IA, when they came to the training session on radionuclear case, they said, no, we never found any health problem. And just no go. You could not comment. So that was already strange. But anyway, so that was with radionuclear, chemical. There are other agencies, foodborne, yeah. And if it is to do with the trade, you also have to go into all the markets to stop peanut butter with salmonella from Canary Islands or from the islands back to Australia or vice versa. You have to stop the whole chain supply, like it was in the slide of the business. And the animal health is the OIE. So if there's a problem with animals, you have to go to this agency that is taking care of all the animals, and you have to vaccinate all the animals in the world. That's what they're trying to do. They're even trying to make us pay taxes on the cat at home now, or the dog, and say that now he has to pay rent also. I've seen motions with that. I was like, they're pushing it really badly with animals and with plants and with the living beings. They want electrify the world, the animals, with their injection and with more aluminium in chemtrails. We know that. So anyway, you also see that the Red Cross is compromised. Yeah.
And Astrid, I think it's probably a fair thing to say that you were an expert in public health. You were part of the team that basically formulated those parameters around what was deemed to be a pandemic, and it was. Is it clear in your mind that the COVID-19 situation did not meet that criteria to be declared a pandemic? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They manipulated that.
Completely. Yes. There is an annex. I could go to the slide right away if you want, because otherwise, maybe, well, let me see. I made it a bit complicated here. Let me go a bit further down. Okay, here. You see, the management of a public health risk is that you do early reporting, case 0, then 1 or 2 cases, you intervene, you stop it quickly. And here you do a rapid response, but here you had from point 0 to top here in 1 month. And that's not possible in the world. That's just for one region, a country, or a cluster. And the early warning is important, but this potential is a timeline. But what they did is, normally the case definition and concept of an acute public health event and a pandemic, you had a 6-phase, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. This was the graphic that we were showing and displaying down below here. That there are phases. You cannot just go from time 0 to time 1 and have a pandemic. There are phases of going, and the big question was, how many countries do you need to have a proof that they have a large problem of epidemic in their country everywhere to say that it is a pandemic? Because pandemic means all who have an epidemic in Latin, in Greek. And it was not clear at all. We could never have that. So in 2009 and after, we had this an influenza pandemic. Is that we had to, that was, which year was it? I think it was 2009. An influenza pandemic occurs when a new influenza virus appears against which the human population has no immunity, resulting in several simultaneous epidemics worldwide with enormous numbers of deaths and illness. With the increase of global transport communication as well as urbanization and overcrowded conditions, epidemics due to the new influenza virus are likely to quickly take hold around the world. This was in preparation of H1N1. So you see, it was used in 2009. Then it was developed in this document to say we cannot say it's the whole world, we have to be careful, we can be sued. And in 2013, that's 14, in Denmark, that's what we were showing.
Mm.
So you see, there was a contradiction between 2009, the definition they are using now, actually, and so they had to prove there's a lot of deaths, but there were not more deaths in 2009. It was a media fear.
And so what we ended up having was basically the falsification of what was a pandemic declaration. So they could kickstart the economic activity like the instrument of hoax, the PCR tests, and all these other money-making opportunities with the vaccines, etc. It was just a money-making exercise.
It was also control of the people, because the fear they created is very long-lasting. I think they worked on a psyop of trauma creation. We all had a certain traumatization, but those who understood had a sense of control, like they call in sense of coherence, a sense of control that was inner, that said, no, I don't agree. But those who don't have that are completely lost in translation. They don't know what to think, And there are many children who suffer from depression because their parents are confused and don't know what to do. This transgender agenda coming after. Everything became chaotic with many agendas. And the children with the education system having education in school at 7 years old on masturbation in school everywhere in the world. It's not just in Switzerland or France, or I have checked this in many countries. Everybody had the same. And then the consent of children can be valid before puberty to change sex. This is all in their agenda of creating much more than the pandemic. They want to stop humanity from thinking, have consciousness, and the children from developing resistance for the future, because they're working on the long run. I thought they would take over the world with Schwarzenegger, you know, coming like they did in Australia. We're almost at home to force injection. I think I've seen this in Australia, and in Canada, and the Commonwealth countries were terrible. But they have a patience, and they go in the long run. Look for since how long they're working on eugenics with 2 wars. So this is this trauma was needed, and the people who have this vaccine is more than just a toxicity. There are ingredients there that stop even the pineal gland, go in the brain, make it confused. People are tired, they can't react, they have no way to understand where to go, what to do. And that's why your programs are very important. They have to understand there are now solutions. You are stronger than this. You have to get back your inner strength. And they wanted that. For me, it's clear. It's individual, collective, family, collective, nation. It's everything. So it's really bad. But you know, if I want to go quickly, one of the main instrument they did not respect was this Annex 2, because this was a key to deciding if a country has an epidemic even. So there are some diseases that should always be notified, and just by chance they took SARS. So they took the SARS-CoV-2 like something we have to notify. We never saw the notification results because normally the science group of the shock room, the special operation room where I took my students, there are 20 people, they are filmed. You can see which country has how many cases, and you know, time. You can see it during 1 year, but not during nothing. And then 1 month you lock down. So that was also terribly wrong. So you have to go on 4 questions. Is this public health impact serious? Every country should do that. So you count the number of deaths from that cause that is evidence. And that's why they used PCR, because it would take too long to have the majority of people saying, no, this doctor says the symptoms are not the same. PCR just made a mess of everything. You have a broken leg and you have a COVID because you did the test, and they were paid to even put post-mortem COVID reason, you know. So we know that corruption, to try and get in the question 1, is it impact serious? No, it was never proven serious. No more death in 2020, remember. Question 2, is it unusual or unexpected? No, SARS-CoV-1 was there already, and I did an article in Acta Biomedica on that. It was already there. It is mutating, so it's not dangerous. It is really not dangerous if it is that. So it was not that. Then, is the risk of international spread serious? No, SARS-CoV-1 showed that it took 8 months for 24 countries, not more than that. Then, risk of travel trade restriction? No, we should not. And they did exactly the opposite. So you need just yes to any of those to notify, but if there is insufficient information, you have to reassess. So we had this graphic here where you have to reevaluate all the time. You have to validate, reevaluate it, and reassess every region. If a region like if Northern Australia, you know, Kakadu and Darwin have nothing, they don't need to lock down. Why would they? And the islands don't need to lock down. And they did a standardization that is not corresponding to the flowchart of WHO that was taught. So that's one thing. I could also show you that that's the article I did the findings where I showed that it's a common flu. Everything I said, there's no epic curve. It is very easy. It's known, etc. And you compare the fatality. It is outrageous what they have written. So that you can find. Then this is the curves that of the disease and the test PCR. So the number of test PCRs were correlated to the number of cases of COVID, of course. So you can see that it doesn't mean they're sick, because people not sick also had positive tests. So they made a deception, and they created this crazy psychological fear, mental health problem, that if you are not sick and not coughing, you might not know that you are sick. So you go in a shop and they say, you wear a mask. I say, I'm not sick, I'm healthy. Oh, we don't know. So you see, this operation was much more than just a war on us. It was between us through the concept of invisible contagion. You are all contagious. Yeah. So that was one. That was the Ioannidis showing no epidemic, no pandemic in 2020, no reason to develop a vaccine. I will let people, take pictures and go further. Wait, that's one here. Then here, WHO, the other thing that was not normal is this is the guidelines of International Research Ethics Review Committee, which I was part of, and we did programs together. I got funds for Harvard University so we could create a booklet. So we did a booklet with all the ethical cases, what we should not do. Where's the slide? I think I took off the slide. And one of the things, you should not create fear. You should say to the community and come back to the community with the research and say that the results are that, and you should keep the people informed. You are participating to a trial, or even as it's global, they should have kept informed. But all they did was create another fear, another virus, another mutant. So everything was wrong. The methodology was a fraud. The study design was a fraud. They did not define anything in terms that are reliable, not fact checker Google, Dr. Google. Health workers were defined as anybody in the street who could vaccinate anybody at one point. It was crazy. The voluntary informed consent was not respected, no signature, no copy. And this really, for people who would, in a case where a doctor starts to tell you something, you trap him by saying, okay, so I would like you to make me an informed consent where you write down that you are responsible financially, morally, economically, politically, I don't know, you can put everything you want. If anything happens with secondary effect to me, you are responsible and you will be judged for that or in the trial. And nobody will do that. There are templates, going on in France. Okay, standard of care, it's impossible to have a global standard. Impossible. Every culture is different. Every system of health is different. If it's cold or warm, if you're at the sea or in the mountain, it cannot be the same. We know that, but we have to repeat it. So the fear mongering is, that's a slide I was showing that it is forbidden to create fear in people. We were doing workshops with the anchor of CNN, what's her name? Christine, I don't remember. Do not create fear, listen to people, be transparent, say you don't know, make peace, bring peace inside. It was exactly the opposite. This was a slide, you see, listen, how you communicate, public communication, coordination, inform, disseminate, be transparent. Nothing is transparent. And this is one of the slides also, how epidemic intelligence, you should go and gather information formally, informally. It was very well designed, but it was not respected. The verification was never done. The risk assessment of the 4 types of deaths was not respected. And I will show you a slide. You see those, I have to show you that, it's important. Wait, not that one, this one. That's the 4 types of potential hazards: infectious, zoonotic, or other events, food safety, that could also become an infection because you have bacteria, parasites, and a lot of things in food, chemical hazard, radionuclear emergency, And there is a missing typology today. And why is it missing? It's because it's one of the key component of the criminal scene. It's biotech weaponry, radiation technology, but much more advanced than anybody can think. It is voice in the skull. It's hacking your own biology to stop the regeneration and blah, blah. So radar, laser, satellites, cell towers, this. So what I did is I tried to make the criminal scene, and that's the slide I was the most censored for in the world. It's that one. It was the biological level. How can we, no, first I have this one, sorry. So in a criminal scene, you have to look at all the causality. Now, we know that food safety, chemical, radionuclear safety product, but there are others. There are consequences of natural disaster, cholera, environmental hazards, accidental deliberate release. Yes, that happened with polonium, with spies from Russia, you know, in 24 hours they were dead, things. Infectious disease can be the result of many of all this. It is infectious disease is just a result of having mercury or problematic in your body, Lyme disease, so for example. Anyway, what is missing here is EMF technology, electromagnetic frequency, hypertronic, psychotronic devices. It's an army, it's a DARPA system, microwave directed radiation, digital biocodes. It is a license from a French who wanted to do good, saying that you can create disease by taking the imprint digital code, biometric digital code, and just sending it, and you create the symptomatology of almost any disease. Professor Montagnier saw that. He said, oh yeah, very strange. Yes, it's very strange. He could, Jacques Benveniste showed him that you can create HIV/AIDS syndrome and any syndrome. And he went back and tried to steal the patent. And then he was nominated Nobel Prize for HIV/AIDS virus. And he said at his Nobel Prize, Professor Montagnier, I am not sure the virus exists. And at the end of his life, he admitted that there is no virus. We only see debris, that bacteria and parasites can create cancer, you know, things like that that we know today. So you should deworm, deparasite yourself, debacteria. You have to that's things that everybody should do all the time. So now that's the slide I was most challenged. Because with all the evidence that I gathered from 221 to now, it is impossible to have a permanent virus. It's impossible to have a permanent, mutation that is worse. It always decreases because the body is stronger and that it disappears. So what did they do? The question was, and Dr. Nagase from Canada, he's the first one who said, in all the vials, I looked if it's biological or not. Question, is there nitrogen or phosphor? You need both to declare it's a biological component, and there was none. Confirmed by Argentina group and many other groups. So when I came, I said, causality of the criminal scene is this injection is not what it says it does. It is not antibodies. It is not a strain of the virus because to create antibodies, because it is all non-biological. And the B is where is interesting. A lot of people in the world took microscopes and looked into what is in the vial or what is in the blood of people who got injected or in the autopsy. And in all the cases, it is absolutely shocking what they have hidden. The batches are all different. They have batches with numbers, but what all of them have is, from what we have seen up to today, is graphene oxide, which is in nanoparticles. And where are the experts of nanoparticles? There are not many, because that has been also an engineered topic of expertise from the army. So the graphene oxide has been found since 21 by Ricardo Delgado. Professor Campra from University of Almere made a big report. He made two. He made one in June, one in November. Then Dr. Biram Bridle from Canada, who is a specialist and who was pro-vaccine, he studied that, and he was the first one to say that what they inject is going all over the body, the bones, the tissues, and it's not normal. It should stay at the point of injection. And that he started to disclose also those elements that are non-biological. And the key one for me was Professor Arne Burkhardt, who I think he died last year, unfortunately, because he was disclosing in front of lawyers from Rainer Füllmich Corona-Ausschuss that in those vials he found metals, chrome and mercury, and nickel. He found parasites that should not be there, probably not biological parasites, or it was encapsulated in technology that created it. We don't know yet. And then he found graphene oxide massively and a kind of chip RFID. So just that in 1 year, and then there's so many who keep on, like in Argentina, in the US, and in Australia, who are international groups who look at all those types. There's also autopsy people, Richard Richardson in the US, O'Clooney in England, who show that there are polymers in the autopsy, that whatever is in those vaccines, or no vaccine injection, create kind of plastic polymer and deplete the body from zinc, potassium, magnesium, and ferritin. So this you have to supply yourself definitely with. And it's not normal. It is a plastic that comes, and like in a plumbery, your arteria and veins are plumbery, they clogged it up, and then you get a stroke, a heart attack. It stops your system circulating. That's exactly what they want. So I always say, go and check your D-dimer, and you take off the electromagnetic frequency, so you're not an antenna anymore. That's Quinta Columna said, with zinc and NAC or glutathione. And that will fluidify your body stronger. And I always say, take ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, things like that. I have a protocol I can give you. So anyway, it's something completely different, the causality, and it was not in IHR. So they have premeditated that we would not know what it is. You need up to 17 microscopes to see things, but even Dr. David Nixon says with just a school microscope, you can already see a lot of things. And a dark field microscope, you can see a lot. Anyway, so they want to do synthetic synthesizers, or I think it's more stop our body from regenerating. That's why they don't want you to go at sea. They don't want you to eat healthy. So those are some of the names of the experts who find unknown elements. And there is now a Korean group, I have the article somewhere here, that show, and we can do that another time, more than 55 different elements in the different vials. So you cannot deny, today you cannot deny that there is a kind of a cyber world control, transhumanist biology, synthesized agenda behind. We don't know everything, so I'm not going to go extensively in that. But there is something very strange. There are many experts like Mark Steele in the UK who warn against this takeover. So now maybe we should go to a conclusion. What do you think?
Well, we're nearly at 3 hours, and yeah, we have to wrap it up. We do have to wrap it up.
Yeah, I legal corruption. So I don't need to present to you that they have violated all your rights. Here is the human rights as a determinant social determinants. It was done in my lecture by Dr. Tarantola. All your rights have been violated. You can go in each of them and you can claim them. In WHO, we had those health and human rights. I was distributing this. I don't know if we can access it, but this violation of human rights is massive. Right to education, right to expression, right to fair trial, everything. Now, the legal thing that we found against WHO, it was last year at the rally against the IHR amendments and the treaty that they're trying to create a IHR tyranny. So the IHR 2005 is great if you apply it, but they've tried to change it in 2016. It didn't go. And now they're trying to make an IHR that would just give you no rights. Keep on doing what they have done. Take hold of the whole business, like we saw. So the business plan is on the road with the smart cities and everything, and the whole United Nations is participating. So Here it was against WHO. We signed with 16 lawyers and an expert of the grand jury and me, because I helped to put the situation in a legal framework. And now you also, and we signed it with Rainer Fulmich, who got access to our document. We sent it to him and he said, yes, I'm with you. So we did this document. That's one of my organization. That's Virginie Darojo-Rechat, and that's the group of Rainer. The Declaration on the Principle of State Sovereignty and Incompatibility with Negotiating Text of the new WHO Pending Agreement and Amendments to the HR. I would add that it is valid for anything the UN does. And that, as it stands, the WHO does not represent at all our sovereignty. So that is the paper. I have sent it to, I know Katie, I can send it to you, John Graham, I can send it. Here is in a bullet point that they violated their own international instruments, the UN Charter of the United Nations, that states are free and can decide on their own sovereignty, and that individuals in the Universal Human Rights have the right to decide for themselves as natural law. The transfer of power and competence and the permanent thing that they're doing at each meeting, they're signing for us things, is a complete violation of the sovereignty of the state and the constitution of Australia and other countries. So our transfer of sovereignty from the constitution of Australia, of New Zealand, and any country is impossible because it is contrary to the fact that we are a sovereign and we don't need to comply to the United Nations. It's just a coordination facility. It should be. It is not something that will decide for the country or for our sovereignty. And in Europe, there's a treaty who says that it is impossible to transfer signature, from people to the UN. And yeah, that's the last one. So the last one is the most important, I think we showed and demonstrated. The conflict of interest, which is non-transparent, is contrary to the interest of the people and violates all member states' representativity of people, and therefore it's invalid. The UN is directed by private interests when it's clear. Finance, now we have the finance on top of it. They're voting without even paying, like cowboys, and cowboys are nice compared to them. Member states' representativity of people is violated completely. So money-making machine, the UN-WHO business run as COVID is crazy. So the conclusion is that it is therefore necessary to put an end to the interventions of the private parties or entities and our non-representativity, and those are financial interests or any interest contrary to the system. You can put the UN. I always put the UN with there. So therefore, member states and our sovereignty as individuals can no longer be bound to the WHO constitution, while private partners guide this institution, nor the UN. And that last sentence, and that it stands, we said that the adoption, action, sign, signature undertaken through WHO, UN, or anything through member states and their population will be contrary to international law and will violate the sovereignty of member states and people's natural law. So therefore, we declare null and void everything. I think we don't even know. I'm at the point where I say we can go back to our ancestors. It is declared null and void. And I did just this to, as a last one, I did a banner in front of the UN with the help of French people who helped me, who proposed, to do it for free. And a banner of kind of 5 meters on 3. And it shows all the violation the UN does. So I called it the UN Gate. Violation of sovereignty, violation of charter, of the constitution, of member states' independence, of the non-respect of criteria allowing the application of fundamental rights, corruption and unresolved conflicts of interest with parties and entities, attack on natural law of the people, superseding all laws. You have to remember that we have to reverse the pyramid of their power structure. We, the people, should be on top of it, and they cannot violate our natural law. But the Pope is using that, so we have to be very careful.
Yeah.
An unauthorized transfer of power, competence, adoption of vote, 2/3 of country is totally illegal. How come 2/3 of countries are deciding for a third of countries of people who don't want it? This is the dictatorship, the most important, I think. So that's it. And for WHO, we cannot sign and accept these IHR amendments before the 18th, 19th of July, everywhere in the world, for those who listen. And this, thank you to your group, John and Katie and Graham, that I know that it is the 19th of July. We have to not consent. Maybe that you can add. And thank you for listening.
Well, thank you so much, Astrid. That's very, very comprehensive. We will break this into three parts because there's a lot for people to digest, but it must be learned. We must understand what's going on, and you've painted a very, very clear picture of just how dastardly the situation is that we're in. This is without a doubt a global takeover. John, I don't know what to say.
Well, I think it just demonstrates, Hoodie, just how difficult it is to stop it, how difficult it is to prosecute them for what they've done. I mean, the likelihood of criminal activity is obvious. The likelihood of corruption is obvious. And the tentacles and networks are everywhere. I mean, this is outrageous. It's a juggernaut that is going to be very difficult to dismantle. But I think having the knowledge of how this operates and how it works is the key to people standing up against this. And look, what I will say is that I think more than any time that we've put anything out on here on Club Grubbery, this is the one to share. I want to see everyone that watches an episode of it share it. Let's get it up, to 100,000 plus shares, because that's the only way we're going to defeat these mongrels. Is get it out in the media and in the social media space, so that the rank and file mums and dads can watch this and have some understanding of what we're up against.
Look, our lives are at stake. That's the simple truth of it. Our lives are at stake, and you're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. Anyone who thinks we're making this stuff up is crazy. John, in 4 years, we put 500 episodes of this program to air, thereabouts, and we've done everything we can to be balanced as much as we can be. And we have brought to you the very best in their fields, as we have tonight. What more can we do? The ball is in your court, everybody. It's up to you. Now, some people are asking in the comments, where are there templates or letters to write? Look, this is where you stand up. You write a letter, or better still, call your member of parliament and tell them you don't want this. You use your own language, because when we bombard these dictators with pro forma letters, they know that it's a campaign. Yeah. But when they hear from you individually in your own words, it makes a difference. So don't expect everyone to lead you to the right pathway. Get out there, make it known, find out where your local member is, and make sure that they know just how incredibly important that this is, that they understand. Because I think a lot of our politicians are as thick as two short planks, John. They wouldn't have a clue. They're just out there in the world stage and their egos have gone nuts. And of course, we also know that probably a few of them are corrupt as well. So I think we need God now more than ever. So I'd like to bring this to a close with a prayer. Lord Father in heaven, we need you. We know that you are still ultimately in control. But Father God, we need the light of truth to be shone on those individuals who desperately need to understand the mood of the people. This is going to come back to bite this country and every country in the world. And the people will rise up. And anyone in power who doesn't see that as a highly probable likelihood cannot read the room and should not be in office. You are poking the bear too hard, and you need to understand. So, Lord Father in heaven, we just pray for your courage, your wisdom, and your grace and mercy. In Jesus' name, amen. Johnny Lardy, you've often been heard to say,
You just couldn't make this stuff up.
You couldn't make this stuff up. Dr. Astrid Stuckelberger, you are so generous with your time. You're such a brave lady. You've really put your life on the line for these sorts of things, and we love you and we want to have you back. Please come
Thank
back
you.
and give us some more information.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure, and I feel your authenticity, and this is why I'm here, and I really I appreciate you a lot. And I'm ready, always to answer questions in the future. I'm sure that there would be a lot of debate to have, and maybe that's something to do, to ask them for their questions, and we can always, see how to answer to them the best possible.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
thank you for what you're doing too. It's great.
thank you
You're
so
very
much.
important.
God bless you. Well, we'll get you back on soon, and everybody at home, stay out of the trees. It's a great country we live in. It's worth standing up for. It's time to get off your backsides, turn the television off, and become active. Otherwise, we're going to lose this country. There's no doubt about it. God bless you all, and thank you for watching Club Grubbery. We'll see you next time very soon. Bye for now.